What's up everybody and welcome to this episode of Gearist TV. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Kinvara number 5 from Saucony. If you're a runner, there's a pretty good chance that you've got a shoe that's been around for years, like let's say the Pegasus 31 by Nike, which is its current iteration. That shoe, no matter what has gone on with it through the years, it's made adjustments here and there, some that you like, some that you don't like, but the chances are that at the end of the day, you can always count on that model, for the most part, to be something that you know that you're going to be consistently comfortable and it's going to really feel good on your foot. And the Kinvara has been one of those shoes, it's always that for me. Now this is the 5th iteration of this shoe, and I think there are a lot of improvements on this shoe that we're going to talk about relative to previous models, relative to the last model, things that other people have pointed out in the past. And one of the biggest things that I would like to say at the outset of this is to pay attention to how much Saucony has paid attention to us, to the runner, how much they've listened and how much they've actually given feedback by changing things in the shoe that we wanted to see differently. So let's get into reviewing the shoe. According to Saucony, the Kinvara 5 is more flexible and durable than any other previous iteration of this shoe. Now on the bottom, the outsole of the shoe, there are 3 basic materials. You've got this green rubber that you can see here. That is XT900 rubber, a more durable, abrasion-resistant rubber. Here, this orange part, we've got IBR+. IBR stands for injection blown rubber. And then here, the remainder of this white part, which also makes up a large portion of the midsole, is EVA+. That's ethyl vinyl acetate foam. It's an enhanced version of that. I'm not quite sure how they've enhanced it, but this is basically an outsole grade EVA foam that is meant to be durable, still have that light weight of EVA foam. So, good stuff there. Now, in previous iterations of the Kinvara, they've gone with all the triangles up in the forefoot. You can look at pictures and look at our review actually over at Gearist.com right now, and you can see that they've carried the triangles in the forefoot all the way up into the toe area. Now in the Kinvara 5, they've still got those triangles, but they primarily lie right under the middle of the forefoot. Now that's not a big deal at all, and in fact, it's actually a much more, in my opinion, kind of durable setting by not having a separated triangle sitting out here on the medial, kind of right under the big toe there. They've gone with a much more just foot-shaped pattern up here, not something that is that triangular shape. If you're a runner who's got a lot of toe off, in other words, when you kind of follow out and you do this, there's some scraping, this is going to be a good addition because it's going to enhance that durability for you. Now, one of the biggest parts that I really like is this addition, or excuse me, this change of the IBR+, the injection blown rubber, on the lateral midfoot. Now, in past iterations of the shoe, we've kind of seen different like shapes of things, and these pods have all been connected and kind of just, there wasn't much intuition as far as I could tell. It seemed that they were trying to cater to a foot rather than to catering to the technology, rather than catering to the flexibility of the shoe. Now in the Kinvara 5, what's great is if you can see these little pod areas here, these 3 orange chunks of rubber, what you can see is that not only are there flex grooves in between each of them as well as on the leading edges, making for 4 total flex grooves in between, but also within each different pod, there are flex grooves in there. Now, this is going to keep that durability high on the lateral midfoot, which is great for people like me because this is primarily, as you can see by the wear, this is primarily where I land, right on that midfoot, forefoot area. But this is going to keep that flexibility nice in that area as well as keeping that durability up. As on all previous years of the Kinvara, there is no rubber on the lateral forefoot right here. Now, as someone who again runs midfoot, forefoot, this is something that I could see if you were especially more of a forefoot runner that you might have some wear issues with. I didn't notice any wear issues. You can see I've got about 40 or 50 miles in these shoes right now. You can see there's not any more accelerated wear here than there is on this rubber section, so not a big deal. I do fancy myself for having kind of a clean gait most of the time. That's by no means a blanket statement, but just be aware that that area, if you've seen wear there in the past, you're probably going to see it as well in this model. And also, there's no, on the medial kind of midfoot all the way to the back, there's no rubber there as well. But again, this is a natural running shoe. We're going to talk about that in the ride section, the midsole section. And as such, it wants to keep you low to the ground, and you're probably not going to be landing, if you're landing right under your body, the chances are you're not going to be able to land like this unless you've got some really like contorted ankle thing going on. So let's get into the midsole. As with all other iterations of the Kinvara, the midsole in this guy is a 4mm drop with 22mm of stack in the heel, 18mm of stack in the forefoot. This is a really great spot in my opinion. It's under that 6mm threshold that I personally like to see or feel, but also it's going to be great for those people that are looking for a natural running stance, a natural posture of the foot, and not so intimidating as a zero drop platform for somebody who's just getting into their first natural running shoes. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Saucony's talked about the Kinvara 5 as being more flexible than other years of this shoe, and I have to say that they've done a nice job of really extending any flex grooves fully from the outsole up into the midsole, and not just by a little bit, but by a lot. You can see here how this flex groove comes all the way up almost to where the upper meets the midsole. It's really great, nice and flexible. It does pass the can we fold the shoe. In fact, you can ball the shoe up almost test. Really nice in the forefoot, nice deep flex grooves, which you can see here, which are not just deep, but they're also wide. I mean, that's a pretty wide flex groove. You could fit a finger in there. So really nice and flexible through the outsole up into the midsole. Now, the Kinvara 5 is a hair softer than its predecessor. Now, for me personally, I like a firm ride. I don't mind it, and it's more than the firmness of the foam that I look for, but it's that response. It's that intelligent response and feedback that you're going to get from the shoe, proprioception. Now, in this case, regardless of the fact that it's a little bit softer, I also like the fact that it's so close to the ground, or at least it feels so close to the ground, has great ground feel, and we'll talk about this more in the ride section, enough to really give me that pop, that responsiveness that I want. So I'm not really affected by that softness. It's actually quite comfortable, and I find myself considering this, and I'm not sure yet, to be my Ironman Chattanooga marathon leg shoe. So we will see. Now let's talk about the upper. The Kinvara 4 had some issues for some people. I saw some people saying that the toe box and the forefoot was really, really narrow to the point of squeezing, and I saw a lot of other people with some durability issues. Now, for me personally, I did not find it to be too terribly narrow. It didn't really bother me. I could see what they were meaning by kind of being boxed in a little bit, but it wasn't overly pressing or squeezing as some people alluded to for me. But the fabric, I could also see, while I didn't experience any tearing or anything, there was a little picking at these flex points where the forefoot flexes. In the Kinvara 5, they've made some fantastic updates that are going to make newbies and loyalists alike very, very happy, and just some great advancements on the upper. So let's get into the details of that. First, let's get into the mesh that makes up the upper, a much more durable, less kind of monofilament-y kind of feeling thing. In monofilament structure, it's not as woven. This is more woven, and it gives the stretch, it gives the upper a little bit of stretch, actually, a little more kind of give. Now, it's not stretchy. I would not go so far as to say that, but it's a nice adaptation to the foot. Now, internally, especially up here in the vamp area, which is this area right here, it's backed by a wider mesh that actually creates a little bit of barrier between the foot and the outer layer of mesh. This serves two purposes. One thing, it allows the finer mesh on the outside to keep out finer debris, but on the inside, it also allows to keep that barrier of air. So it's going to ventilate the shoe and the foot much better in that area. Now, as with other years of the Kinvara, the supporting structure is made up largely of flex film, which is this material here. It is a reinforced flex film that comes into the rear of the shoe here. Really nice stuff. It feels really, really great. And in years past, this shoe and the Kinvara 3 and the Kinvara 4, what they seemed to be doing was trying to adapt the upper to the foot. Now, the trouble with that is that we all have different feet, so you kind of have to ballpark it and figure out, well, what's going to be the general foot that we can apply these flex points to, and we can apply the design of the upper to. In the Kinvara 5, what seems to have happened, and this is my take on it, is that they've just said, well, look, let's support the shoe based around the function that the shoe is going to have, okay? How is the shoe needing to be supported? How can we affect the durability of the shoe rather than how can we cater to a generic foot? And it's a really great improvement that seems to have affected the durability in a very positive way in this shoe. Now, behind that outer mesh that we've been talking about is a system that Saucony's brought over from its track spike line. I'm going to try to show you two here, but it's going to be a little bit tricky. You can see right here, this is called their Pro-Lock system, right there. And basically what it is there is internally a triangular piece of material that's actually that flex film stuff reinforced with some monofilament line that goes from about right here to about right here, forming a triangle on lateral and medial sides of the shoe. And what this is meant to do, it's got a combination lace hole up at the top, which goes right in line with the other lace holes, that's really going to cinch down around that midfoot. It's really going to lock the foot in place, hence the name Pro-Lock. But what's great about it is that you can cater this to your foot. So if you don't want it to be so tight, simply don't tighten down on that lace hole as much. It's a really nice feature I enjoy. Now, before you go thinking that this might be something that would annoy your foot, that's not necessarily the case. Saucony's done a good job by putting this super soft, which you can see this bright green material here, it goes down to right about there. This super soft material that is very, very comfortable on the foot. The interesting thing about it is that while it serves to keep the Pro-Lock system separate from the foot so there are no hot spots in wear or anything like that, is that at the front of that piece of material right there, which is gusseted into the tongue, I should mention, to keep out finer debris, so that's a nice little touch that I enjoy. But at the front of that, there's a piece of elastic on both the lateral and medial sides of the shoe. I thought at first, when I first put this on, I put it on barefoot straight out of the box, let's just see how it fits and feels and things like that. I thought that this was going to annoy my foot, okay, because it's there. It's not something that's pushing into my foot, it's not something that's sharp, it's very, very soft. And as soon as I ran in it the first time, I forgot all about it. However, it is there, so just be conscious of that. When you put it on your foot for the first time, don't worry if you feel that piece of elastic there. It's meant to be there, but it feels really nice on the foot. It did not get in my way at all. If you have a different experience, I'd love to hear about it, but I think that it's a necessary piece to keep those two things separated. I'm not sure how I would change that. Maybe see if the elastic could be gotten rid of or something, and it's sewn, that piece of the kind of the green mesh in there sewn into the front part of the mesh or something like that. I'm not sure. But again, I don't think all that's necessary because it didn't bother me. One place that a lot of people really wanted to see some changes in the Kinvara line was in the collar right here and in the tongue. So what Saucony's done is they've instituted a material called Run Dry. It's really great moisture wicking material, but it's also really silky smooth. Feels fantastic against the foot. And while this is a little bit more puffy than previous years of the shoe, than all previous years of the shoe, it's that foam that's in there, it compresses, it molds to the foot and kind of disappears. It's not something that's like a stiff, rigid foam that's overly filled or anything like that. I think they could probably lose a little bit off the collar and maybe even off the tongue. But again, it molds to the foot so well and is so lightweight that it feels nice. And that material, that Run Dry material is pretty dope. Let's talk about fit real quick. No problems whatsoever. This size 11 fits like all other Saucony shoes that I've worn and feels fantastic. That issue of having a more narrow than some would like toe box, gone. I love the way this toe box feels. In fact, it may be one of the most toe boxy Kinvara models that I've worn. So really, really great job there. I think people are really going to like that. As we move back in the shoe, this Pro-Lock system that I mentioned just a second ago really does a nice job of allowing a measure of customizability that a lot of people are going to really like, I think. Some people might find it unnecessary. I think it's a nice touch to hug that foot because some people want that natural posture and some people really want to be able to have their laces nice and loose to allow for blood flow, but then they feel like they're not locked into their shoe well enough. This gives a very minimalist approach to being able to really lock that foot down while allowing blood flow to still go the way that it should across the top of the foot. Also, as I mentioned in the upper section a second ago, the collar and tongue do a really nice job. I do think that's largely the responsibility of the new Run Dry material that's in there, which is, again, really, really nice. It could lose a bit of that foam, as I mentioned, but it doesn't affect the fit because that foam compresses and molds to the foot so well. So nice job on the fit, and I have no complaints about the fit whatsoever. I talked about the ride a few minutes ago when I was talking about the midsole of the shoe, and I have to say that I've always liked the ride of the Kinvara. Sometimes it's felt not quite as peppy, but this iteration of the shoe feels really, really nice. This is also why I'm considering it to be the run leg shoe of my Ironman Chattanooga coming up. Really nice ride, nice responsive, lightweight at 7.7 or 7.6 ounces depending on whose measurements you look at. And it just feels really great on the foot. It's something that there's not a ton of overdone bells and whistles. That flex film just keeps everything nice and lightweight and flexible. And again, Saucony made a point of saying that this is the most flexible model of this shoe they've had so far. And I have to say, I mean, it does a great job. You can twist it up, you can do this, you can smack it up, flip it, rub it down. Oh no! One of the other things that makes the Kinvara so popular among so many runners is its price. While other competitors in its same range are going to be around $150 to $175 in some cases, this is $100, and it's a very popular shoe because of that. It's very durable, it's very comfortable, has a light, low, natural posture for the foot. Just a really, really solid shoe, and they carry that price line over from previous models, and that's a really nice feature that they've continued to really respect runners with that. I've been a fan of the Kinvara since its first model in 2010. I really liked it, and this model's no different. It's done a great job of having some updates from previous models that people had some problems with, especially in that fit area with changing the durability in the toe box as well as changing the shape of the toe box and providing more room for splay and toe wiggle. Now, while 2014 is only about a little over halfway over, this is definitely one of the top shoes of the year that we've reviewed so far, and don't be surprised if you see it in our top shoes of 2014 coming up in this winter. Our question for you guys today is, have you run in the Kinvara 5? If not, are you a Kinvara loyalist from way back? Let's hear your impressions of previous models and what you'd like to see changed. Leave your comments in the comments section below. Now let's rock out some super rapid fire ratings for this guy. First up, construction, we give it 4.5 stars. Next up, for durability, we're going to give it 4 stars. For comfort, another 4.5 stars. We also gave it 4.5 stars on fit, weight, and performance. Really, really great, well-constructed shoe. Still a big fan of the Kinvara. So that is it, guys, for this episode of Gearist TV. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels. We've got some promotions and things on the way that we want you to be aware of, and if you're subscribed, that's the best way to find out as soon as they go live. Also, don't forget that right now I am recording a video diary twice a week following my training personally for Ironman Chattanooga. It's very, very exciting, very difficult training. I really screwed the pooch on a run this weekend, so that kind of sucked. But please follow along. There are going to be some social icons right over here where you can do that. Follow on Strava, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. Also, be sure to click over to Gearist.com and check out all of our reviews, including the written review of the Kinvara that we just talked about, just in case there are any little points that you want to go back over, or leave a comment there. We happily welcome those. So thank you guys so much for following along and for subscribing. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.